And as always, this video is brought to you by our brand new full channel partner, Keto Crisp. The wonderful folks over at 𝗧𝗿𝗂𝐾𝐨.com have officially signed on to partner with me in both my weight loss journey, which I am back on now, as well as sponsoring the channel. They have signed me up for a brand new affiliate program. So if you click the link down below, as well as put in my discount code, you'll receive 15% off your first order, and I do get a tiny commission if you do purchase. So it helps the channel and you get something tasty and healthy. These are great bars. They satisfy. They keep you full for a long time. They have a lot of great nutrients, a lot of great natural ingredients. And for those of us in the keto and low carb world, we've often been demonized as not a friend to the animals, but these are 100% plant-based. So you can feel good about that too if you are of the vegetarian or vegan keto lifestyle. These are also for you. So with that being said, I want to say a huge shout out to Keto Crisp for sponsoring the channel and helping me to stay on the air here. And thank you all. So if you'd like to order some, definitely check them out below. I appreciate it. Everyone, welcome to Keto and Krime. And for those of you listening via podcast, welcome to Thought Crime. Today I have a very special guest. I have Aimee from True Crime Sushi. Welcome, Aimee.
Hi, thank you for having me, Tracy.
Well, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. So I know we share quite a few subscribers, and also with Trish over at Web Sleuths. So we've chatted before in chat, but never in person. So this is a great honor for me.
Oh, stop. It's my pleasure. And I'm the one that's honored. And by the way, congratulations on hitting your 5,000. That's a milestone.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And your channel's growing leaps and bounds too. I notice it every time I go over there to watch something.
I'm trying, slow and steady.
It's difficult. It really is. When I look at channels that have millions of subscribers, and I think, wow, how is that possible? But then I look and they've been around for 10 years or so. I said, that's how it's possible. So it takes time. It takes time.
And you have to find your little place in the world too. So,
Exactly. So I want to apologize to everybody. I use natural light in my office, and it was sunny, but now it's starting to get cloudy. So that's the reason I'm a little overcast. So I apologize. But anyway, so Aimee, you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into true crime and what made you start a channel, and tell us a little bit about your channel and kind of what your focus is.
Sure. So we were talking before we went on air. I'm Gen X too, and I live in Florida. And so I was young when Adam Walsh went missing in Hollywood, Florida. So I remember that being on the news and being talked a lot about, and in the papers, and having a curiosity when he was found, and my mom trying to protect me and me asking questions. And, it was just like, why would somebody take a little kid? You hadn't really heard of that before. That probably sparked an interest, although it developed a little later. I think naturally I've always been a curious person. I was the kid that was like looking through the library for, Bermuda Triangle, Loch Ness Monster, Amelia Earhart, anything of that nature. And, a lot of that you can't relate to, but then you find things that are mysteries around you and you start paying attention to them. Later in life, I worked in public relations, and I happened to work with John Walsh for a while, not as an employee. He was a speaker on our circuit. And so hearing him speak, every other day or every third day for a 6-month tour or whatever, that reignited. You're on the road, you don't have anything to do. We're just starting to get internet on our phones at that time. You're in the hotel. We know that if you travel as a woman, or anybody that's ever traveled as a woman, the hotel TVs are catered to men. They're all golf and sports and things of that nature. And so I started watching court TV, like HLN, a lot when I traveled, and then talking to people around me. And there's other people that work in that world that are, work in personal protection and logistics and are ex-agents or ex-law enforcement. So it became like this kind of pastime. So YouTube, I didn't really realize that they were covering true crime on YouTube until probably Chris Watts. And I should back up when I say that, because I would watch a lot of documentaries on YouTube, but I didn't know that people did live, broadcasts where there was interaction and participation. I was absolutely fascinated, because here I am, somebody that doesn't really watch a lot of TV, and I like to discuss it. I don't have anybody around me that wants to discuss it. And now there's this whole little microcosm of people. So I was absolutely fascinated by that. So that's kind of where it started for me. And then, I just kind of popped around and found channels that I liked, and, followed the cases that I was interested in, and then found out there were people that were covering cases from the past that I'd always been obsessed with. So it just became kind of like a little, I don't want to say a hobby, but it's my outlet and entertainment. Other people, I have 2 stepchildren. I have a husband. I work. I do all the things around the house and garden and stuff like that. But this is my unwind, decompress time. And I love being able to interact with people that I don't have to explain everything to, or have them look at me weird and say, why do you think that murder is so fascinating? And it's like, I think humans are fascinating. It's like why people do certain things. And, with every case that I kind of look at in the back of my head, I'm not here to solve crimes. I'm here to discuss them. And I always think there's like a social issue or like a sociological issue that's combined with that case. So there you go. Sorry you asked, probably.
No, you and I have a lot in common. It was the Adam Walsh case. That was the first case that I really got interested, because it happened, I was a kid when that happened. You were a kid when that, around that time. Also the Atlanta child murders, the Wayne Williams case, those, and then the Judith Ann Neely case, which happened like right in my backyard, literally were huge. And you couldn't really follow them. The only way you could follow them was through the newspaper, news, if you were lucky, somebody wrote a book. And you could read that. And then, of course, when cable television was more mainstream, you had more channels. I got addicted to court TV. I've never missed a day of the O.J. Simpson trial. That was my first big case, big case that I watched. And then got hooked on ID Discovery and all those shows, the, Wives with Knives and all that stuff. And of course, Snapped was one of the first. And of course, I think our generation grew up watching Unsolved Mysteries.
And America's Most Wanted.
With John Walsh, of course.
Yes.
And speaking of John Walsh, since you know him, tell me if I'm right. He always seemed like a very approachable kind of guy.
Okay, well, I don't want to mislead anybody. I don't have a personal relationship with him.
Well, since you've met him.
I've met him.
He seems like a very approachable kind of guy.
He is very approachable. Extremely, and very professional, very dedicated, very passionate. I will tell you, at least to me, he was very kind. I introduced him at a luncheon at Comerica Park in, I don't know, I can't remember if it was before or after 9/11. I think it was right after 9/11. And the equipment got, what do you call that, feedback, when I went up to stand up. And I mean, I was I was young. I was like 26 and I thought I was going to die. And he was just so kind. Like it just wouldn't cooperate. And I'm trying to take it off and like move to the side. And he finally just walked over there and he was like, I think that was a big enough announcement as that we got everybody's attention. Don't you worry about it. And it was just so like, that's a testament to somebody's character, because not all like high profile people are like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen them berate people in front of other people. So
yeah.
That's just not who he is. And that was not an act, because later when he was done and we were making sure everybody was getting in the right cars, or had their stuff in their green room for their next event, or whatever the case was, he was like, you did good, kid. So I really can't say anything other than sing his praises and admire him for taking a horrible, horrible situation and turning it into something positive. Somebody that has taken down people on the top 10 FBI wanted list.
Yep.
And as someone on YouTube, I have to say, like, he is a pioneer for, I speak very passionately about crowdsourcing for crime.
Yep.
And he, he's our leader as far as I'm concerned. Yeah,
exactly. Somebody that could take something. He and Polly Klaas's father as well.
Oh, Mark Klaas, absolutely.
Mark Klaas. They've taken very bad situations and really turned to using the public to solve crimes. And
yes.
And I think us YouTubers take that and do it on a much smaller scale. But
sure,
we can keep these older cases. Some of them are still unsolved. I mean, even though he finally got some closure, I think, in the Adam Walsh case. But how long did it take them to solve that? 10 to 15 years?
Well, Adam's body, or his head, I hate talking about this.
Yeah.
Was found pretty
quickly in the canal.
Quickly.
There. Yeah.
But yes, to wrap up everything, it took quite a while, and they were persistent.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so as YouTubers, it depends on what your angle is. Like I said, I'm not here to like really solve a crime, but would I believe in that that idea that if I talk about it to 10 people and they talk about it to 10 people and they talk about it to 10 people, maybe somebody knows something, and not everybody pays attention to who's missing, or who was a victim of a homicide or a victim of a violent crime. Not everybody watches that stuff.
Exactly.
And so I kind of hope that it's like, what do they call that, like it's like something in a jar. Forgot what the saying is. But
yeah. So tell me, so what's your channel's a lot like mine in that I mainly cover older crimes that have had a resolution. I like to dive deep into those and take it down to the minute details, so that people can understand. I rarely cover crimes that are happening in the moment unless it's just a very special case. I think those exceptions for me would be, of course, 𝗙𝗵𝗁. That case, the Laundrie 𝗚𝗚 case, the Murdaugh case out of South Carolina, just because it's like a soap opera, and that the Fawn Mountain case, which was an unknown case. It's an older case too, from 2014, of somebody that the police just did nothing, and so it was YouTubers that brought that and got the search reopened and got a billboard campaign going for that, and of course now. Gabby Petito, and of course Summer Wells. But I try not to. I very minimally covered both of those because, like you said, I'm not a journalist. I'm not here to crack cases or solve crimes. If I can help with it, outstanding. But that's not my goal. My goal is to just bring awareness, because I want to find the people that did this to these people. And so I only report the facts. It's like Trisha and I from 𝗬𝗬𝗃, she'll say all the time, we could make a lot more money and be a lot more popular if we would jump on the rumor train with everyone else and just talk about, you know, the same details over and over and twist them a little bit every time. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stick to the facts and what we know.
Right. No,
And you're
I
the
feel the
same way.
same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely the same way. And I get some pushback on that sometimes, because sometimes I don't even want to acknowledge rumors, because I have this theory that if rumors are talked about enough, even if we keep classifying them as rumors, they become legend, and then they become fact, and then we become clouded. And so it's difficult. But yes, in fact, I was just looking at something the other day and thinking, wow, you know, we all kind of accepted this as fact, but now I'm going to have to put it over in the other pile, because I realize that it's not confirmed. And, you know, and that happens sometimes. And then you have to go back and say, okay, as far as this discussion goes, when we're talking about it, we have to remove this piece of information, because we don't really know. And people get frustrated by that. But just because everybody says it doesn't mean it's true.
Exactly. For example, I've gotten some questions about, well, what do you think about Dog the Bounty Hunter and his whole, I said, well, if Dog knows where Brian Laundrie is, he needs to go get him. And if he captures him, then I'll tell you he captured him. But just him saying it, he has a theory about what he is, I said, I'll put it in the pile with everybody else's hypothesis, because it's not been proven to be a true theory. And we'll see what happens, you know?
Yeah, I don't care if Scooby-Doo and Pikachu bring him home. Honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, go for it. As long as nobody's using vigilante justice and, you know, things like that, and they're calling 911 right away, I really like make it a free for all, because he needs to be found. He has, you know, and he could, let's just be honest, he has not been charged with murder. He's been charged with fraud.
Exactly.
So, you know,
they have no, you know, they haven't even told us the results of her autopsy yet, except to say it was definitely homicide.
Right.
That's all they've told us. They didn't tell us the method of death or anything.
Right.
So, you know, and I think they charged him with the fraud just to get a warrant on him.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. To get, to stop anything else nefarious that might be happening. Yeah. And to be able to talk to him.
Yep. Either, I mean, he could be somewhere in the country. He could be dead from suicide or from whatever else. Or he could be out of the country and in a country with no extradition, and we'll never find him.
Right. Well, there's just too many variables. We don't know. I mean, obviously, I have a high respect for law enforcement, and there's things that, even though I really want to know them very badly, the FBI and the police aren't going to tell you. And the parents aren't talking.
Well, we don't have Brian. To. You wouldn't expect them to. I mean, that's their son. They're not going to give him up.
See,
it's not, I don't have children, so I don't understand, you know, I can't fully understand that bond, but it's what I would expect them to do. I don't think it's right. From a legal perspective or even a moral perspective when dealing with Gabby's family.
Right.
But they're not going to give him up. They're not going to give any information.
Oh, I will acknowledge that. As far as like, I was always told you can never say what you do until you walk in somebody else's moccasins. But
exactly.
You know, I have stepchildren who I love and adore, and you know, I'm just so happy that I have that opportunity. I don't have my own children, but my husband and I have talked a lot, like in teaching the kids about telling the truth. And it doesn't matter, you know, I've said to them before, like they're 12 and 11. So this goes back, these conversations started when they were like 4, right? It doesn't matter what you did. As long as you tell me the truth, I'm always going to love you. It's unconditional. You know, I want you to come to me because I can help you. And I may not always like what you do. And I may not like you in the moment, but I will always love you and I will always help you through it. And so I'd like to, I mean, my husband and I have said, like, you know, if they came home one night and said they hit somebody with a car and just didn't stop pull the driveway, like we would call the police.
Mm-hmm.
We would. So I don't know, but I haven't been in that position. So I guess they don't have any right to judge, you know? So I wish they would cooperate.
Well, of course, me too, because I want justice for her. Even if he didn't do it, he's the only one that can tell what happened during those days that we don't know what happened. He's the only one.
Right. There's a weird chance that there's some, I'm not going to, not that anybody's listening to me for a defense, but I'm not going to give ideas, but I'm sure there's a story that could be plausible, and, burden of the proof is on the prosecution. So who knows?
Didn't you do some sleuthing around when they were doing the search of the house? I think I remember seeing that on Web Sleuths. Weren't you like out and about with the crowds, kind of watching what was happening that day that they were investigating?
I did go to Northport. It's about 2.5, 3 hours from my house. And I have done that for other cases. I never like insert myself. I never go real life. I have rules or what have you. But I always believe that when you're covering a case, that the ones you cover best are like, okay, so I didn't cover Casey Anthony, but I can pretty much tell you anything you want to know about it, because it was in it was in Orlando. Yep. I went to the same school as them. I was living here at the time. I know, like when they say, it was this Amscott, like I drive by that Amscott every day. You have this like map and landmarks, and you get a better feeling for everything. And so, because we knew that Gabby Petito was going to be so big, I mean, you can sense it. Mm-hmm. And everything involved, I did go out to Northport, and I stayed about 2 days, and went out to the family's house, couldn't get on the street, had to park at a model home. The FBI came in, then we all had to clear out. The press went to one side of the street. Anybody that wasn't press, like, and you weren't allowed to park at the model home, had to leave. So I spent a lot of time like at the police station, at City Hall. There's a makeshift memorial. I went out to both entrances to the park, both the Venice side and the side that's closest to the Laundrie home. And it was an interesting experience because there are tons of press there. Everybody talked. Everybody was really kind, shared information. Here's where you need to go. Here's what you need to see. But I feel like I don't have anything over anybody else from going out there. I didn't really find anything miraculous. I wasn't looking for anything. For me, it's more like when they start talking about maybe how long it is to get from the Laundrie home to the campground, I've driven it, and I've driven every route that you can to get there. When they talk about where you park your car, I've parked my car there. It just gives you an idea about timeframes and references and conditions and things of that nature. I can't explain it. That's probably part of my true crime curiosity, but I would never like go and knock on someone's door or anything like that. That is off limits for me. I don't even like family contact in cases. I did it once. It just kind of happened. Mm-hmm. And it's not for me. Because what happens is details come out at a certain point that might be unflattering, or they don't want to be reported, but they're out there, and then they're controlling the narrative, and then everybody's going to them. And then you feel like, or at least for me, I've had a shift in my mind where like, yes, when you talk about making your YouTube channel popular, yeah, people always want to see family members interviewed. People always want to see the best friend or what have you. For me, and I'm not judging anybody else, I've had access to things like that because of my one experience, I won't do it. I have felt like it's exploitive.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you're asking people to go through and relive trauma that's maybe unresolved. And I am not qualified, nor can I provide resources for someone like that.
Exactly.
If they were to have an issue. So I just stay away from that. That's not my, that's not my arena, but I respect the people that are, qualified and feel like they could do that. But I'm not going to lie to you, in the back of my mind, I always tell people, like, I worry about the Jenny Jones factor. I'm going to talk to somebody sometime. They're going to seem like they're okay. There's going to be a conversation, and then they can't handle it and something bad happens, and I can't do that.
Exactly.
So.
Well, I totally agree with you. And I have thought about reaching out to family members in current cases to see if I could at least get a quote. Then I think, no, I'm not a journalist. I have no business doing that. I'm just going to report the case as it unfolds.
Well, there's nothing wrong with it. It has to be a personal decision. I think for me, I just, I've had my experiences with that, and it's a rough road when, you feel like you have a relationship with somebody, and then something comes out in the news, something that you didn't report. Everybody's talking about it, and they're telling you, like, you got to tell them that's not true. You got to this, and it's like, I can't, like, this is a discussion. You can't control the narrative. Like, you just can't. Like, it sucks, but can't do it. It's got to be transparent.
Exactly. Well, so where are we now on the Gabby Petito case? I know that still searching for Brian. There's the warrant now. A bunch of celebs like Dog the Bounty Hunter have offered theories as to where he is. I know they returned his car to his family.
Yes.
The one they searched. We still have not heard what evidence they may or may not have found at the parents' house. I don't suspect we'll be hearing anything about that really until there's a trial, if there is a trial. And so we're just kind of back at square one, not knowing where he is.
Well, today there were some interesting developments. Hold on one second. I'm getting over cold.
Friday, Thursday, September 30th.
Okay.
This won't be airing that day, but this is the update as of Friday, September 30th.
Okay, so as of Thursday, today.
Friday. Thursday. Thursday. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, you just made me think I left my kids at school.
You're like, oh my God.
No. Okay. Yeah, Thursday. So I was of Thursday, which is the time we're talking. Today, the FBI rolled up to the Laundrie house again. They walked in with a paper bag. They were in there for maybe 10 minutes. They came out. There were 2 agents. They came out. They went to the cab over camper, the one that they had allegedly gone camping with Brian in, and seemed to reach inside it and get something, and they returned back into the house. Now, our understanding from the Laundrie lawyer is that the FBI were there gathering additional items that belong to Brian in order to aid in tracking him. However, the press and some super sleuthers took the video that the news crews had taken and went frame by frame and enlarged it. And it looks like the FBI reached inside the camper wearing purple latex gloves and a specimen cup. So they took some sort of specimen out of that camper and they left with it in a cooler. And so that was one of the things that happened today. Yesterday, which would have been Wednesday, the attorney for the Laundrie family, Stephen Bertolino out of New York, was asked about Brian coming home from the trip flying back to clean out a storage unit with his dad,
Mhm.
and then flying back up to
Utah.
Utah. So this is one of the things I said that like even I had accepted as fact, that Brian flew home and then Brian flew back, and the reporter said, why would he do that in the middle of a trip? And the attorney responded, no comment, which is interesting. So I started to think about it, because I'm like, well, the FBI in Northport aren't really saying anything. Neither is FBI Denver, but surely they've checked flight manifests. So why are we all accepting this as fact? And that, I think the reason is because Brian left Gabby in that Fairfield Inn, I believe that's what it was, for a couple days while he went home. 𝗂𝗶 Petito ordered her Uber Eats while she was there.
On the 21st, I believe, August 21st.
Right. So Gabby must have told 𝗂𝗶 Petito and Nicole Schmidt, her mother, that Brian had to fly home, and they accepted that as fact. But when you look at it now, I mean, that's what Brian told Gabby. Who knows if that's true? And who had the van at that time? And why would he leave? Because it is, for the cost of a plane ticket, let's be honest, even if the plane ticket from Utah to Orlando International or Tampa International, even if that plane ticket is $150 round trip, Chris Laundrie could have paid 3 workers $50, $10 an hour to help him empty a storage unit.
Yeah, I've never really understood that. Even when I, put that as part of the timeline that I did, I'm like, that never makes sense to me. It's like there's nobody local that could help him clean out a storage unit. And so in my head, I never put this theory out in public. I'm going to do it with you because we can maybe talk about it. My theory was that, okay, if that has happened, I'm going to report that it is, because every other outlet is reporting it too. That maybe after the incident near the Moonflower co-op, where the domestic dispute.
Yes.
The mental illness occurrence, as it was hence written up as, maybe they actually split up, broke up. And maybe Brian left, whether he went home intending to stay home if he flew, and she stayed at the hotel. But again, why would she stay in a hotel if she had the van? That never occurred to me until just now talking to you.
Right.
But maybe they split up and then they got back together and then it boiled over again. That's the only theory that I've really entertained.
Well, I think that's plausible, because like I said, before we were all accepting this as fact, but now when you look at it, the police aren't reporting that.
And it's only media that's reporting that. And where did that story come from?
It came from the Petito Schmidt family, because that's what their daughter told them.
Right.
Brian had to fly home, and you have to heavy speculation here, but you have to take into consideration that Brian and Gabby have both said that they were watching their money. They were unlimited funds. Like what? They worked at the grocery store to save up money to go on this trip.
Right.
So,
and their social media, I'm gathering, having bought the social media battle as you have, they probably weren't monetized anywhere at that point. So they had no income.
Right. And I don't see that they have any sponsorships on YouTube for their video or anything like that. So here's a perfect example. When I wanted to go to Northport, I was looking at hotels and I was looking at, Priceline or whatever, because I'm by myself. I want to stay somewhere safe, but I don't need somebody coming and giving me a foot massage every night either. Right. So it just has to be safe and clean for the most part, and my husband's like, don't, whatever. And I'm like, don't worry, honey. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be part of the news. But even these 2-star, 1-star hotels are like $100 a night. So I'm thinking about where they were in Utah, and I looked and what the rates are. Somebody paid for that hotel. And that was in my opinion, a unexpected expense.
When
So
they had
whether
when they had a converted van, they could have stayed in.
exactly. So either, Gabby's parents said, there's no way you're staying in a van for this many nights by yourself, or, you're going to stay here because of this reason, or she's emotionally exhausted, or she just needs to talk to her mom and dad and they're trying to figure out a plan. A lot of times with our parents, especially when we're in those years, 23 to whatever, we don't tell them everything.
Right.
Because we're trying to, as close as we are, we want our independence and our privacy. And so she may not have confided about what really happened.
Well, another thing, the police put Brian, and this is confirmed by the police there in Utah, in the Moab area, that they put him into a hotel for that night. And I know enough about police to know they didn't pay for it. He had to pay for it, I'm sure. So there's an unexpected expense. And then
that hotel actually was paid for by a victim's emergency assistant fund.
Okay. Well, I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So they have, the way that works is the police can call and say, well, we have these two people. One person doesn't have anywhere to go. They're the victim. And this assistance fund has like a rate with the hotel or vouchers with the hotel. And so they will put somebody there so that they're safe for the night. So that's how Brian got there. And that, the only reason I paid a lot of attention to that is because I didn't like Brian's, I'm not a doctor, but what I consider a duper's delight, the smiling he had on the side of the road, like he was getting away with something. And so I took just for my own satisfaction, I took the body cam footage frame by frame when they're dropping him off at the hotel. He looks like he's just been given a lollipop and a ticket to Disneyland, and he's about to ask about the pool. He is so excited to be in that hotel for the night. It's disgusting. He's just had a major fight with somebody he's calling his fiance. They're separated. She almost went to jail. They had a public fight. There were 2 911 calls. She's alone in a van that she says on tape she's scared to drive by herself. And he's just like, woohoo, I'm at Club Med in Moab, like it may not mean anything to anybody else. It means something to me.
Yeah.
So.
No, very interesting. Maybe he was glad to be away from her for a night for whatever reason. Or maybe, like you said, it's just he felt he had won something. He had gotten over on somebody, Well,
I think maybe that's it. It's like, oh, I fooled them, or she's the one always looking good and I'm not, or I don't know what it is. There's some dynamic there that isn't completely out there. I have heard, and this is hearsay, and it's not like a major rumor, otherwise I wouldn't say it, but that Gabby was more outdoorsy than Brian. Brian was the one that wanted to go and pay $5 to take a shower. Brian is rather than, bathing in a lake or an outdoor shower at a campground. Brian is one that wanted to go eat at restaurants. Gabby was eating, yogurt, granola in the back of the bus and happy about it, or van, So maybe the hotel was like a thing for him because he's really, maybe that whole persona of being Mr. Survivalist, Bear Grylls isn't 100%.
Well, yeah, I had heard that he had spent maybe 3 months on the Appalachian Trail, but who knows?
Me too.
Where did that come from?
Me too. And I've never hiked the Appalachian Trail. I was actually talking to somebody 2 nights ago that has, with her family, a couple of times. And she said, this is not the way it works for everybody. But if you want to do that, you have to, and I wish I could remember the term she used, but what you have to do is set yourself up with, people mailing you supplies or you adding supplies, and you get to a certain point and you get off the trail, you go to the post office, you get your fresh batteries, you get all that stuff, and then you get back on, because there's no way to just do that. I don't know if that's true. She said, it's not true for everybody. Maybe he did, but she said, I think I would be very careful about listening to people saying, he survived for 3 months. She said there's no food sources. There's no, you have to carry, well, there are food sources, but you have to carry supplementals.
Yeah. Either that, or you have to know what plants to eat or can eat, what nuts, berries you can eat. And you have to be able to hunt if you have to.
Yeah. You have to be able to hunt and fish and be good enough at it to provide your body with a caloric intake it needs to cover the expended energy you're using every day to hike.
Exactly.
So, and survive the temperatures and whatnot. But I'm sorry, I went on a tangent.
So, I heard that. I wasn't sure where that came from. So just why I haven't really talked about it in any videos.
Well, and my understanding is that when he did that, Gabby was with him.
Okay.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that Stephanie Harlow pointed out in her video on them is that, in her opinion, she says, allegedly, don't come for me, like she always does.
Right.
She goes, Brian had these, what I would consider very almost conceited Instagram posts about how men are interlopers and men are rodents, and people are rodents that infest these natural areas, because he found like a plastic water bottle on the ground in a campground. Right. Just this huge rant about it.
Yes.
And then that story where they had stopped after he picked Gabby up at the Fairfield Inn when he got back from wherever he went. And they stopped in at a gas station, and the clerk there said they bought 2 bottles of water and some kind of convenience food item. And she goes, so it really strikes me as odd that these people that are ranting about, being more friendly to the earth are now in a gas station buying bottles of water and convenience food items. And she said, now maybe it wasn't them, maybe it was somebody that just resembled them after the clerk heard about the case. But she said there's something about that. There's something about his persona that's not quite right. And I think you and her hit the nail on the head. There's something about his persona that's not quite right.
I think he thinks he's smarter than everybody else intellectually. I think if he's alive, he has got the mindset where he is just almost euphoric because he thinks he's outsmarting everybody in that aspect. And I will tell you, as an observer, I agree with Stephanie Harlow. I don't know if that story about buying the drinks and the convenience food is, absolute, like she said. But I will tell you that when they're eating in the camper van, they're taking food out of plastic containers. Now, they're storage containers like some of us buy at Amazon, like cereal dispensers. Those are plastic. They're eating out of a plastic bowl. Now, I realize they're not completely disposable. They're not doing it right away, but they're still plastic. Whatever they were using to store water, because Brian specifically tells the officer that they were actually on their way to get water when they're pulled over at that traffic stop at one point. What were they using to store water? I don't think they were carrying a big glass vessel or pots on their head. Plastic. I think you can look at a lot of things with, I'm not going to even bring Gabby into it because she didn't make this she wasn't up on her soapbox about that as much.
No, she was, I think, more in love with minimalism and the van life in general. Whereas he was the one that was more on the, green lifestyle, so to speak.
Well, he talked a lot. I mean, and I admire anybody trying to reduce their carbon footprint and all of that.
Absolutely.
But let's be honest, they're driving a van that does not get great gas mileage Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Those Ford
probably
conversion vans probably get maybe 18 miles to the gallon if they're lucky. Probably about the same as our pickup truck does. So
right. So, there's some hypocrisy there, and it's not running on grease. I mean, it didn't smell like French fries when it was going down the road. You look at the clothes he wears, you look at his baseball cap, you look at, oh, I don't know, you just look at some of the stuff in there and you're like, that's a lot of, there's a lot of consumerism for somebody that says, we shouldn't be doing this and doing that. And so I think for Brian, like, it was a manifesto, and he was like superior to everybody else, but really that's a persona, and the good boyfriend is a persona, and the I'm just trying to give her some space, I want her to just calm down, that's a persona. I think there's a whole secret life of Brian that we don't know about. And what I'm curious about is, I don't know if you have, but I haven't seen any friends of Brian come out. Did Brian have any friends?
I mean, they're all people that Gabby knew that from work.
Right.
Or either high school or work, the ones that worked, went to high school with, or worked in the pharmacy that she worked at back in New York before they left for Florida. And then the grocery store that they worked at in Florida.
Right.
No one has specifically said, I'm a friend of Brian. It's, I'm a friend of Gabby.
Right.
So that's, I didn't even realize that until you just you're a lot more observant about those things than I am, for sure.
No, no, that's not it. I think this is why discussing true crime is interesting, because we all see different things.
I saw, I saw right through him on the police cam when they were the body cam when they were questioning him. I'm like, I've seen that before in abusive people that I've known in my past, not directly toward me, but people that have been abusive toward friends and family members. I've seen that I didn't do anything kind of motif, so I knew that was fake. But now that I think about it, with what Stephanie Harlow pointed out about his, I am a green god, and now where's his friends? It's all starting to come together a little bit.
Right. And you look around and you see that the things that he detests are the things that he's using on a daily basis during this trip, including the van, which, by the way, Gabby, right. But Gabby had said that she wasn't sure about the van, but Brian was like, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And so she gave him credit for the van. So he didn't pick, a Prius that like popped open like Inspector Gadget into a camping thing.
Right.
They bought that Ford conversion van that doesn't, like you said, probably gets, I bet it gets 15 miles to the gallon or less, honestly. That's a lot of van, a lot of weight, a lot of stuff in it. I don't see it.
Plus the fact I didn't see solar or anything on it. I mean, he wouldn't have been sitting on top of it if he was, unless there was a deck built over the solar panels. So it was running entirely off of fossil fuels. And so they were charging everything they had off of fossil fuels. So
exactly. So yeah, that's what I said. Like when you look around, I'm not going to lump Gabby into it because she wasn't up on her soapbox about it, but he was, but yet here he is doing all of these things and using all of these things, but then, getting on Instagram and being like, I'm a golden god and, what have you. I mean, I really can't. I think there's a lot more to Brian than we know. And I personally am not qualified to diagnose him, nor should anybody diagnose him, to be honest, even if they're qualified, because you can't diagnose them unless you meet them. That would be very irresponsible outside of scope, and you could lose your license.
Oh yeah. So. I don't think he's I don't think he's been truthful in the situation. I don't think that the persona he's put forward is the actual persona of who he is. That's all I'll say.
No, I think he's fake. He's weak. He's a coward. And he makes himself feel good by controlling other people. That's my opinion of him.
Yeah, and my other opinion is wherever he is, I don't think he's roughing it. I don't think he's out in a tent somewhere on a trail. If he's wherever he's at, he's living in some kind of stability, whether he's in another, like an RV or another van or a car, or staying in hotels with cash under an alias, you know.
Right.
I don't think he's out in a tent in the wilderness.
I honestly, I don't think he'd want to be at all.
No.
I don't. There's so many possibilities. I get, when we get to the search part of this, it's very confusing for me because, you know, they've been out at that swamp for so many days. The water's starting to recede now because, you know, in Florida it rains for a week and we're all underwater. And then 2 days later, like, you know, 50% more of the land is exposed. And it was unfortunate that it was raining so much when all of this started to happen. And they were already 3 days behind. But then you hear about Fort DeSoto Park, which is again on the West Coast and about 75 miles from where Brian lived. And they're matching up those camping dates. And you think, well, did the Northport Police Department know about this? Certainly the FBI found this. Are we just finding this out because they were keeping that close to the vest and somebody else found it, made it public? But now they're out searching, and now that video is going to the FBI. So it's all very confusing. I'm a staunch supporter of law enforcement, and I don't like to criticize them. But up until, honestly, like today, I was talking to someone this afternoon, and I just said, you know, they can't answer whether or not law enforcement or Joe Petito ever saw Brian before the day with the tent, the day the 911 call came out to the house, which was the day before she was reported missing.
Right.
Nobody's saying they actually saw Brian that day. So Brian could have been gone on the 8th for all we know.
Right. I mean, we know they all got in that camper and left, but then didn't people, I think it was reported by neighbors that he came back with them.
Yes, but there's one set of neighbors talking. There's one.
Right. They could have been mistaken.
Yeah, we haven't seen any other neighbors talk. And yes, they could have been mistaken. They could have gotten their dates confused. You know, a lot of this didn't mean anything to anybody until later. So it's, all of that is very confusing. And I'll tell you that I do get a little bit of information from you know, somebody that would know. And, you know, they tell me when it's like what they call embargoed or not, like you can talk about it or you can't, or what's off the record. And so last week, that the question that was posed was, did Northport Police or Joe Petito, Gabby's father, ever set eyes on Brian Laundrie? And the answer was no comment, unembargoed, no. Wow. So I really don't know how they stood at that press conference out on the lawn in front of City Hall, and a reporter said, do you know where Brian Laundrie is? And they said, yes, we know exactly where he is. And then poof, he's gone. I mean, I understand you can't harass people, but all of us that follow true crime know that they can surveil, they can put tracking devices, they can do things. I don't know how anybody didn't notice the Mustang leaving the house, quite honestly.
Right. Exactly.
So,
I mean, have you ever been to that reserve that they were talking about? Have you ever actually been out there to see what kind of, I know it's very swampy.
The one that they're looking for him in,
yes,
that's in Northport?
Yeah. Well,
I have, and here's why. Just so people don't think I'm jumping in on this. I have a love of dinosaurs. And so my husband it's one of the things we like to do together. We will go fossil hunting in the Peace River. which is close by. And there also are some areas in there where you can find things, although you can't remove them from that area because it's a protected area. But yeah, I've been out there. And when I was out there, hold on one second. I'm so sorry. When I was out there last week, one of the things I took video of to show people, I walked over to a fence and I said, listen, if you haven't ever been to Florida, here's a view over the fence, hanging my camera over the fence, like literally my whole torso. And I said, that's just like trees or whatever. Look 2 inches to the right. There's palmettos over palmettos over palmettos. And then look over here. This is dry right here. And then you throw a stick in it and it's 8 feet of water. That's what Florida is like. It's unforgiving. This isn't like, you know, a forest where you have like a moss, you know, thing in a tree canopy. I mean, you don't know where you're stepping. Dry land, 8 feet of water, sticky things, snakes hanging everywhere, and bugs. And the idea that somebody could travel through there at night, to me, is a joke, because you wouldn't be able to see 1 foot, you know, 2 feet in front of your face. There's no way. And you wouldn't even be able to see up through all of that craziness to use I mean, don't make fun of me, but to use like the moon and the star as your guide, you know, I really don't think you could.
Yeah.
And I will attest to this by saying I live in Orlando, but I live on, you know, several acres in the middle of nowhere. We have cleared around the house because of hurricanes and stuff, but on all sides of the house, or 3 sides of the house, I mean, you want to talk about, there's a canal. If I went over our fence, I couldn't walk 2 feet into there without getting cut up or falling or anything. Nothing. Even with hiking boots and gloves, and like, I don't want to sound like I'm exaggerating, but I think you'd almost have to have some sort of face covering because you're just going to get some of those palmettos. The things on them are like not razor blades, but like, it would be like getting paper cuts all over you. I mean, and if you're sweaty and you've been wet, imagine what that's going to do to you.
Exactly.
So
I agree.
The thought of him in there is just, I understand they have to look there, but they have to have I would think they'd have to have some other intel other than the parents about why they would think he was there, because that is an expensive operation. It's a dangerous operation. It is insane. And I walked out, I went out there when I was there where they were looking and stood with the rest of the press. And I mean, it was hot. It was humid. They couldn't keep enough water for those people out. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, I mean, I don't know if they can't do it in their vehicles for 2 or 3 hours and stay hydrated. How is Brian doing it on feet and staying hydrated? So the only thing I can think of is that when Roberta Laundrie reported him missing, it became a crisis situation, not only because now we have other things going on, because Gabby's reported missing, but I believe she had to drop some magic words like self-harm. And then they were looking for him because they were afraid of that, and that upped the intensity of the search.
Right.
Sorry, I'm long-winded.
No. I kind of agree with you there. And I believe instead of actually going in there, again, speculation that he left his car there as a decoy and someone picked him up, or he got another vehicle and left.
I think there's a chance that a lot of this is very orchestrated. And there's a lot of people involved that I don't know why they're risking Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Brian Laundrie is to them that they would risk themselves, but that's just my opinion.
Exactly. And I agree with you. I think that's a very expensive operation because if he's in there, he's no longer alive.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think
And,
that's a recovery mission.
Yep.
But I do think
they have to turn over every stone as a law enforcement. I know they do.
Exactly. And when they had very grainy, things that showed human body heat somewhere or trail cam or whatever, they would be remiss for not checking into it. And I think we have to be patient and understand that, but it's frustrating. Because, I'll circle back to talking to your children about telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Our 11-year-old he's a sweetie pie, but man, he is like Casey Anthony in the hallway at Universal Studios. Like he will get all the way back into a wall, and I'll say, Christian, and he's like, okay. Or I'll say, because people have cameras in their house, and I don't do this to them, but I'm like, well, if I look on camera, am I going to see you crashing your bike into the back of Dad's car? Nope. And then, we look, and there it is. And he's like, that's the one that looks like me with the same bike. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what are you doing? And so, like, what do you do with a child at that point? You have to sit down and have a conversation and say, we don't do this. And like, I want to have trust in you. And when you do this, I can't believe anything you say. And it hurts me. It hurts you. You're just making yourself look stupid. I just want to like go into the Laundrie home and talk to them like my 11-year-old. What are you doing? What's your end game here?
Yep.
It's
a crime that they're found to be, lying to law enforcement or concealing evidence. I mean, that's a crime. They're going to go down for that. And I don't know if I'm sure their lawyer has made them aware of that, but still, it may not have sunk in. Well,
they're using their Fifth Amendment, so they can't be. They can't get for lying to police
because they're not talking. Yeah.
Right. And honestly, this is one of the reasons like a lot of people have problems with me, but from a defense aspect, that's probably the best advice an attorney could give them, because anything can and will be used against you. However, if they were being completely forthright, I think we can agree that in this situation, so complete scenario here that's made up. Brian comes home and says, oh my gosh, I had an accident with Gabby, and he tells them that she's dead, right? And it's a crime not to report a dead body. Okay. And then they start helping him and laying out plans for him to get away. Yes, they're going to be in trouble for that. They are. I don't care. Well, I really don't care what other people say. There will be a way where they will be charged for that. And even if those charges are just to put pressure on them to talk. Does that make sense? But then again, This is a hypothetical. I'm not saying that happened.
Right.
So yeah.
So one final question before we go. Since you were obsessed with the Casey Anthony case, just like I was.
Yes.
What's your theory on that case? I mean, she's been found not guilty. She's not going to be tried again because of double jeopardy. What's your theory?
Oh, I wholeheartedly believe that Kaylee died while under the care of Casey. I believe that it might have been accidental. I struggle with the duct tape. If there weren't the duct tape, I would be 100% was accidental and she covered it up. But I believe she had been medicating her for quite some time so that she could live both lives, and so she could have her party life and then be around her parents. And I mean, I believe she died in 𝗬𝐶's care and that 𝗬𝐶 disposed of her, and it was 𝗬𝐶 alone. I don't believe anybody helped put that child anywhere other than Casey Anthony.
I'm of the same. I believe she probably was Zanny the nanny. I mean, Xanax, that's the first thing I think of. And I know I'm not the only one ever put forward that I think she was drugging her so she would sleep 12, 14 hours so she could go do her thing, and then she just didn't wake up.
I agree. Or she had herself in a situation where she left her in the car, you know, unsupervised sleeping, and it was too hot. Maybe, I mean, probably shouldn't ask me this because I haven't, these cases really bother me, but I also have a tendency to get very graphic. So I don't know if I should, but I've often thought about if she was drugging her and leaving in the car, because a lot of times she was going to people's houses and we know that 𝗬𝐁𝐴 was still alive, but we don't know who had 𝗬𝐁𝐴. So we don't have to, but we speculate that she was concealed somewhere or put somewhere and probably drugged, because what's the other explanation? Nobody else has come forward. And so what if there's a scenario where she had an accident with a medication or the heat in the car or something like that, and 𝗬𝐁𝐴 wasn't completely dead, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so she just
finished the job instead of taking her for medical.
Exactly. Yeah.
That might be the more plausible. That might explain the tape on the mouth.
Right. Because it was summer. It was Florida. I mean, you know, we have a law here. It should be everywhere, but you can't leave your dog in the car. A citizen can break your window and you're going to go to jail if you leave your dog in the car. You're not leaving your child in the car for 2 minutes. My groceries sometimes during the summertime, I carry like cooler bags because they melt in like 15 minutes from the grocery store. I can't buy ice cream during the summer. So you certainly can't leave your child in there.
All right. Well, Aimee, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'll put the links to your channel down below, and hopefully some of my subscribers, if they aren't aware of you, will be over there real soon. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, with that being said, I'll see you next time. Keto and Krime out.